special guest this evening is Dr. Richard Allan Miller. And of course, Richard's been on my show before and many others, and it's always a pleasure to have him on the show. He's an author and researcher, and Dr. Richard Allan Miller reveals a depth of knowledge and experience in alternative agriculture, physics, and metaphysics. Miller began working in the secret world of Navy Intel, SEAL Corp, and then MRU in the late 60s, and now has amazing experiences and conclusions to share. Before many leading-edge concepts became trending topics, Miller was and is in the international front lines of research, experimentation, and documentation. And his website is www.richardallanmiller.com, and I believe you can purchase his books at oak/publishing.com. And please welcome Richard to the show this evening. Hello there.
Hi there. I'm up and about.
Good. It's great to hear your voice, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
You're so happy.
We're going to go somewhere different tonight, maybe.
We are. We've talked about so many hardcore things, and I thought, yes, let's talk about the occult big time, and also some other things. I want to touch base on your writing that you just finished. Maybe you'd like to talk a little bit about that as well.
Oh, you mean on fullerenes as a nuke?
Yeah, that looks totally awesome.
So I believe that 9/11 was not a tactical nuke, but a new concept in a deuterium fission bomb using fullerenes. And I think they're using it in a lot of places. I sent you the patent. The work was done at MIT. And basically, it's much hotter than a thermite bomb on Building 7. When Building 7 came down, it was within 3% of free fall. I had that on my website probably 2 weeks afterwards, saying that, it was a controlled demolition. Now, the only thing that would do that we have in our ordinance right now was thermite. And it would bring a building down like that, like a controlled fall. Unless it had been rigged with a new weapon that they're using in geoengineering. And this has come out. It's what they do is they take 60 carbon atoms and they bond together into a ball, a buckyball. Very strong structure. Strong enough and big enough, you can put 24 deuterium water molecules in the center of it. And what they then do is hit it with a laser light, and the laser light will refract off the bond angles and create a super plasma, what is known as supercavitation in the center of this buckyball on a less than 1 nanometer. It's like really, really small. And that means they have the precision of being able to drop an airplane, make it vaporize into nothing, so there's nothing to find. They've used it in Gaza, and it's certainly at the Baghdad airport.
And when was this developed?
Well, 2010 was when the patents started showing up, but they were talking about a neutron bomb back in the 50s. After the thermonuclear weapon, we started with an atomic bomb, then a hydrogen bomb, and then we had an atomic bomb, using plutonium. Now they had talked about using heavy water as a deuterium bomb or a neutron bomb. And what they've done is gone a little further, where this kind of explosion is minuscule. You can put it in the steel and it will vaporize it, like that 614-foot piece of steel girding on Building 7 that as it was starting to fall, it vaporized.
Right, yeah.
Well, there it is. And it's a new weapon, and they're using it in everything. And the worst part, in everything. And it's like nuclear energy. The positive thing that could have happened was in medicine, like nuclear energy, except that we went to weapons first and then used it as our power source as a byproduct because of weapons development. That's how it works.
Right. Does this have any connection to Star Wars, Richard?
You mean, this isn't
SDI.
Kansas anymore. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Like a particle beam weapon type thing? I was just curious.
It's like a particle beam weapon. What they do is use a laser beam to cause the lasing to occur inside a nanotube. And that nanotube geodesic dome, if you will, think of it like a Dyson sphere around the sun. It contains the explosion because that structure is literally 12, 14, 15 times stronger than the diamond bond. It's a carbon bond, but because of the van der Waals forces, it's like harder than diamond in structure. Can contain a fusion a fusion reaction. Now, this was first seen as an art form with dolphin. And that's where it all originally came from. The dolphin are blowing these little sonoluminescence. And it's a little burst of sound that causes water to cavitate and surround itself. And if you actually look inside cavitation, what you have is a torus twistor space where the topological surface or exclusion zone that they talk about in the fourth phase of water becomes your topological surface where the curvature goes inside out. And that metaphor can be taken into a lot of places about inner Earth.
Right. Can we talk about inner Earth for a little bit?
You mean the hobbits?
There's an echo over there.
You're so cool. Listen, you want to talk about the creatures inside out.
Well, what's your impression? Let's hear it.
Well, that's there's a book Alan Dean Foster wrote. Alan Dean Foster wrote Maori and a bunch of other books. He wrote Star Wars, by the way, in case you're interested. And yes, and he wrote one called Into the Out of. And that's about this African witch doctor that notes a little shift in space, kind of like Skinwalker Ranch. And out they come, and it's a really good book.
Sounds interesting.
And, Into the Out of.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to do on Middle Earth. I don't have a clue.
Okay. So what about your
modeling? It's physics. I have to be very careful because I'm a physicist, and for credibility, I have to, talk about the part I understand.
Right, but you're also a sorcerer, so you understand consciousness and dimensional frequencies in space beyond the illusion of time.
With that one, Solaris.
I got you.
In fourth grade, and while I might have studied Gurdjieff, there is a limitation here to where I can go in.
I know you know.
I'm stuck here like the rest of us.
Okay, I'll just let that slide.
The correct metaphor is that even if I were ultimately aware and union with myself and all of that kind of stuff, I can't get out of here until you get your shit together. That's the way it works.
Excuse my French, we can't swear on this.
In other words, all the people
we have our what together. It's others that don't, I guess. We've done well, I think.
But though people will say, I did a thing in Mexico with Eben Alexander, Proof of Heaven. I did this thing in Brisbane with another guy. I can't remember his name, but they're always the best speaker because everybody wants to know what's going to happen at the moment of death. And so that's that movie I talked about that I strongly recommend called Astral City. It's in Portuguese, so you need English subtitles and all of that. You can get it on Hulu.
Nice. What year was that done? What's
that?
What year was that done, that movie? Or
Xavier Chola. I think it was 2012. It's a recent movie.
I haven't heard of that one. That sounds good. That sounds like a good film. I haven't heard of it.
Well, yeah, what it is, the movie starts off with this doctor watching himself die on an operating table. And when he dies, the next thing that happens is he wakes up. And that's where it starts, the movie.
Nice. Well, I guess that's where we really become alive, isn't it?
Well,
we're in a false reality right now.
Okay, I have always suggested that the physical plane is not real, that it is where we go to be sick spiritually, and that time is not real. It might be, that our experience of the physical plane is the fever that we're currently enjoying. And some of us are really out of there because, like, health has to do with internal landscape and what you think. It actually structures the water in your body and makes the difference on whether it's a good day to die. I love Worf. That kind of place where you have a different kind of relationship to what's going on. Now, in the book, it would suggest we're all from the future. And when you die, your loved ones will come down to Hades because you're wandering around, you're awake in Zombieland. Basically, the guy, the moment he dies, his head is pulled up from under a muddy water, a puddle. His head's underwater and takes a breath, and he looks around. It's all dark and bleak, and everybody's moaning because everybody's sick. It's all in metaphor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's an interesting thing. I was fortunate to watch it 2 weeks before my father died, and it helped me process that event. And then the next big question, Solaris, what do you think about LSD therapy?
Well, that opens up higher consciousness, I would imagine. It would open the DNA, but what
it does is it helps the terminally ill. Kubler-Ross and Stanislav Grof, there's a whole bunch of them, it's legal, are using lysergic acid amides, the LSD trip setting, to help people terminally ill face their fear of death. And it works. And so once you have a belief system in your mindset, there's different ways you can approach death. That's what the Bordeaux Thedal was about. That was what the Egyptian Book of the Dead was about, how to prepare yourself for death.
Right. Very, very, very true. So basically,
you want to talk about the occult and go down into it.
Yeah.
What level do you want me to, because I can get, like physics, I can get into it.
Oh, let's go hardcore. Let's just do it.
Well, how deep do you want to get into it, like magic and things like that?
I mean, as far as you want to go, we're ready to roll. Let's do it.
I want to go.
There's no limits here on my show.
That weird lodge in Texas.
What's that?
Huh?
What'd you say?
I said that weird lodge in Texas.
Yeah. No, whatever you want to go with and how far you want to go is really, because I think we should navigate in some deep waters. Let's not talk just about the regular generic stuff. I'd like to go a little bit deeper and talk about things that are really complex.
You go ahead and ask questions, and I'll try to respond, like what a witch is, what witches, drools, and hags.
Okay, well, I'm a witchy poo. I'm a good one. But hey, you are a sorcerer, correct?
I'm a sorcerer.
Didn't you say you were last time I interviewed you?
No. Sorcery would be I'm using candles, and I got burned the last time I did.
Okay, so what are you?
I'm kidding.
Okay, what do you call yourself?
There are different levels of relationship to yourself. And that's where I am right now, seeking union with myself. It's called pathworking. And that's halfway to God.
Right.
That's not God. That's like halfway, where you have dialogue with your higher self, like you and I are talking to each other right now. Now, I'm lucky. Gurdjieff said there were 3 basic kinds of humans in the world: those that had it out of the crib, those that got it during a lifetime, and those that don't even know what I'm talking about. And the ones that came out of the crib may have a chance of getting out of here. Even those of us that are waking up slowly probably will incarnate back. I would suggest your children are your reincarnation. That's why Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young says to teach your children well. That is your legacy. That is what's going to save the earth, not you. It's you doing it and them learning how to do it from you. And so values and behavior patterns, codes of ethics, rules of conduct, those kinds of things are what shape and make us human. And when we have fallen angels around us, Beelzebub, Ashtaroth, 5 deadly sins: greed, lust, jealousy, anger. You get the idea. Demons aren't real, and God's not at war with anything.
I agree.
But we would have to, in 4th grade, where we are, have to polarize things and say, well, I'm seeing that fence over there, it's green. And you are on the other side of the fence, and they did a little switcheroo and painted the other color. And so there it is. Who's right?
Based on perception, right?
That's based on perception, right? So now you're getting, okay, so what level do we want to talk about perception?
Well, let's go.
That's why they have different planets and resonances to your inner parts of self. It's a metaphor again, like Saturn, the inhibitions and fears, whereas Mars, the aggressive and energy to do something. Jupiter, the benevolent and yet the source of money. That kind of, that. So it's all in metaphor. What's Uranus, by the way?
It's interesting because
Uranus.
Oh, go ahead.
Is a higher octave of the will or your consciousness. That's what Uranus is, to be distinguished differently than Neptune. And so these constructs, and now, there are different constructs. The Chinese have 12, we do too, sorry. But the Chinese do it with different kind of metaphors with animals. It's kind of like the distinction between the Greek and the Egyptian. The Egyptian gods were semi-animal forms and more difficult to touch and relate to with consciousness, whereas Greek pantheon had a structure that was more humanized with stories so that you could relate to that aspect of yourself that was following that mythology. And if that's a new book I'm writing called Pantheon.
Nice.
It equals The Modern Alchemist.
When's that going to come out?
What's that?
When is that going to be available?
When I find a patron, it's already written. I've got 10 books. Yeah, I've got 10 books ready.
Excellent.
The Pantheon is 22 chapters.
Nice.
That's because there are 22 chapters in the big city. And in Jungian psychotherapy, which is what I write in, basically you can either see a person is either possessed, that means there's one God working through them, or they're complexed, which means more than one. That means you have more than one story going on. And once you can identify what story that part of yourself is following, the ending, Greek ending, the Greek tragedies, remember those guys? And know how it's going to end.
Right.
As a metaphor.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you something real quick. So the concept of a fallen angel to me would be a representation of a fall from consciousness.
Or a quality that we have articulated as greed, different than jealousy, as undesirable and not worthy of being human.
Okay. That's interesting.
And, that's how Raziel spoke to Enoch. And there were 72 of them. That was called the Lemegaton. It was the 72 fallen angels. And if you go back into the Babylonian star maps, which is where those sigils and things originally came from in the Goetia, some of the other textbooks, you will find that basically a demon like Ashtaroth is probably jealousy with a little bit of rage. In other words, that's his calling card.
Right. So it's an aspect of consciousness.
That's his essence.
Okay.
His essence. And that's why the different essences were considered demons. And they weren't above, you were above that kind of behavior.
Right. That makes sense.
Good luck with that. And that's the other part of it, because the bad news is most people on the physical plane can see things in other people, but they cannot see them in themselves. And actually what they call that in psychology is projection of the shadow.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are tools. These are ways of looking at things that allow you to move forward in spiritual consciousness. And magic was always reserved for the ultra elite of Europe for centuries. All your greatest writers, poets, artists were part of some kind of magic lodge. That's why they were, one point in history, the Jesuits were known as the Illuminati or the Illuminated ones. They were the sciences for the church.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why Crowley suggested with the aim of religion and the method of science.
Right.
The aim of religion with the method of science. And that's what magic is. Magic is basically an art form. It's like sculpting or painting. It's the art of changing consciousness at will. And at the lowest end of that would be legerdemain or sleight of hand.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Then as you move up the scale of qualities from a witch to a sorcerer to a magician to a magus. By the way, that's a good book to read.
Which one?
The Magus by John Fowles.
Mm-hmm.
Fowles actually has 9 different endings. And depending on which publisher you go to, it has a different ending. How does that work?
That's pretty wild.
And you know, the Ipcris guy file. What was his name?
Which one? Chris Carter?
No, with Anthony Quinn.
Oh.
The English actor that played in the Ipcris file.
Oh, gosh. I don't know offhand.
Okay, well, he's played a bunch of spy movies and things like that. Well, he's a school teacher in this movie, and Anthony Quinn is the Magus. And what happens next is a transformation of awareness.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's what it's about.
Exactly. So can you elaborate a little bit on the Illuminati from your perspective?
The Illuminati. Well, okay, from my perspective.
Right.
I am currently, this century, part of an order. It's an interlodge to OTO, Ordo Templi Orientis, Order of the Temple of the Orient. It has an interlodge, that's the primary magic group that Crowley founded, has an inner group called Argeum Argentum, or Order of the Silver Star. And I gave you their exam.
Right, yeah.
Good luck trying to answer that one, man. Well, there it is. I had to do that. That was part of the College of Thelema, you know, with Phyllis Seckler. And so, you know, the idea is that originally the church needed scientists when, like in The Name of the Rose, when Umberto Eco wrote that book, Sean Connery was a 14th century Jesuit that would go in and try to solve a murder. That was what the Jesuits were about. That's what the Illuminated were about. And in another century, the church turned on the sciences and burned them. And the war was started, and that was the Illuminati with Weishaupt and those people. That was a couple of centuries ago. The Hashishans and the assassin groups and so on.
Right. So it was infiltrated with more of a corrupted...
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's anger. One of the demons got loose in the group.
So how do you exercise those?
Well, so that's exactly correct. Yeah, put garlic. That worked. You know, garlic does work, by the way. You can take a handful of garlic and you walk in your front door and you walk around every single corner, not leaving any corner out, and walk back out the door, and you have just sealed your house.
Very nice.
Because, in fact, it's not about the garlic, it's your mind's eye.
It's the intent.
That's how, yes, the intent. And the intent is different than the intentionality. That's called the Stanford argument, where they make a distinction between true will, what actually happens, and intentionality, what coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Right.
Yeah, missed it by that much. Little Maxwell's smart.
It makes a lot of sense to me. That's
well, it's the idea that what will happen, what actually physically happens, is what's supposed to happen. And that your response to it is all the difference in the universe between being enlightened and being karmic, cracking and burning with anger. You know, some people are, both of you have to go down the hall, but you can go down there kicking and screaming, and I'm not going to visit, I'm going to fight my way down there. Or you could be like Buddha, where the mountain came to him. You have to be very careful. That mountain could have been falling on him, too. So,
or was the mountain even there?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
That's interesting. So we are receiving and transmitting, obviously. So there's intent and direction and, of course, manifestation at will.
And then your perception of it.
Right.
Whether the glass is half full, half empty, or full of it.
Good point, because if we're manifesting at will, from what we manifest might be entirely different than what someone else would perceive it as.
That's always the case, and that part is God's will. Mm-hmm. That's not for us to make judgment on another. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. Mm-hmm. That means the highest form of love there is the love of your true will. Okay, what you end up doing at the end of the day.
Right. So what about the chaos?
What's that?
What about chaos? What about the chaos in motion right now we're witnessing across the board here on this world?
It's all false flags. Nothing is real. It's all orchestrated. We will never know what's really going on because the media right now is worse than Nazi Germany was. And really even alternative radio. There are very, very few people that are saying it straight out.
Mm-hmm, I agree. Yeah.
That's, and I'm talking about interviewers, not just the interviewees.
Mm-hmm.
They all have agendas.
I know.
That's so, it's what you'll find, it isn't about information. It's about truth. And truth is quite different. And there's only one place you find truth, and that's inside yourself. And while it's different, my truth is different than your truth. That's the part that actually is kind of exciting in a sense. Like children are our most important asset because of their diversity. And that's one of the reasons why I have issues about Common Core and, the educational forms that are being practiced today. Mm-hmm. Are quite different than when I went to school. I had Latin by second grade.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Things have changed considerably.
Well, why?
What's that?
Why?
I think it's just this insanity. I mean, to me, there seems to be like a brain virus going on across the board here.
Well, that's okay. Now, that's a good place to go. Here's one. Okay, that's called a meme. And there is a place called Church of the Virus at Lucifer.com. Nice. And it's a bunch of anthropologists working in cybernetic anthropology, and they have the Lucifer.com to poke your button, to wake you up and realize that an idea is also a kind of virus or infection.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I believe that. Yeah, your mind can be used as a weapon without a doubt. So what do you do to clear the virus, the mind virus? What is your suggestion to clear that?
Drink lots of milk. Yeah, got milk, calcium. Okay, so you need to start with yourself. That's what magic's about. And everybody is going to have to do it before any of us get out of here. And time perception is not real. Time is a duration of consciousness, which means at some level of the hologram, if you work with a holographic universe, which is the models I use, mm-hmm. If you use that at just halfway up the archetypal level of consciousness, that's where you or me, and I am the walrus. Mm-hmm. We're all the same person at some level of awareness. And when you hit that place, you're halfway to yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's only halfway to yourself. And then the other part is when you have this union, there's an explosion. It's all lovely. And then you realize that that's only halfway, and what you now need is a helicopter with a guide. That's where masters come in. These are individuals that don't belong here and have somehow chosen to come back to offer footprints or footsteps on how to get from here to there. And here to there would be to talk to God like you and I are doing right now. Mm-hmm. Now, right. We all do that in many levels. And I don't understand the nature of Gnosticism or agnostics, ones that don't believe in God nihilists, that kind of thing. I don't understand that because, in fact, the universe I see is not chaotic. It's quite ordered.
Mm-hmm.
And structured water. There it is, that concept. Everything's got form to it.
Right.
What it means is that's a discovery process that may, never be achieved. Actually, in my studies in science, I've actually encountered several events, situations, where I realized that this may not be knowable at any century.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that's not about knowing. What's that mean? And that's the part that Castaneda and others have mystically written about, that idea that the truth of reality, the nagual, the unspeakable, that which cannot be known is real truth. Mm-hmm. And that what you can only do is experience it. You can't know it. Knowing would be, in a Kabbalistic sense, considered the random, arbitrary piecing dots together. Oh, guess what? The dots can be connected anyway. In other words, you've got 5 space, sliders and alternatives.
Yeah. So the experience can convert into knowing.
I'm sorry?
Experience converts into knowing, right?
Well, there is a missing Sephiroth in the Tree of Life called Daath. D-A-A-T-H. It is a stepping stone going from Christ consciousness to God consciousness, going from Tiphareth to Kether. And this is in the middle of the Sea of Karanzan, the Sea of Chaos. And that is known as knowledge through wisdom. And what it would be a bit like we're playing Follow the Leader, and I run down a hill, and then you run down the hill, and then I come rushing up to this big raging river, and without hesitation, I leap out into the center of this flowing river, and unbeknownst to you, step on a rock that is under the water by 3 inches. No, you can't see it. And then leap over to the other side laughing. That little temporary place is Daath. And that's the way it works. And that's called middle pillar. There are other ways to get to God. The other 2 ways is on the masculine or feminine side. The 2 paths are either the lovers or the hermit. And the lovers is a metaphor for being the androgynous part of self. And the hermit, of course, is integrated. And they're both the same. And the path that connects across them right through Daath and the middle of the Sea of Karanzan, that's called humor.
Mm-hmm. Which is something we all need, for sure.
Oh, it's not beyond you. And I've written a whole bunch of books on this stuff. They're unpublished, called The Holistic Kabbalah.
Excellent. And those are on your website, right?
Well, yeah, that's one of the books that's ready for press.
Okay. So they can find it if someone wants to.
My website now is mostly about the work I did in agriculture, some of the very foundation work I'm doing in metaphysics, and then, of course, the physics I did when I trained Navy SEALs and made them Supermen. Mm-hmm. And so some of magic is the application of high-tech physics to enhance, like a Borg. Right? Resistance is futile.
Well, it's all about a state of consciousness. It's really about rewiring your circuitry through consciousness, isn't it?
That's your purpose, is to get out of here and go back
tell
home.
Me about it. Let's go. I'm out of here. I have planetary burnout, Richard.
Well, okay. That's the half-empty part. Watch that, because that'll age you. That'll cause you to age.
Oh,
actually,
great.
I have
Thanks.
a TARDIS, and what it does is it tickles me, because the more I laugh, the younger I get.
Well, you have a great laugh. Everybody loves your laugh. It's very healing.
Well, it's maniacal. I'm going to be remembered like Boris Karloff, when he said, I'm a scientist myself. You'll see. I'll show you.
Oh, you're so funny. You'll outlive everybody, I'm sure.
I'm going to be like Albert Hoffman, 102. You know why he lived so long?
No.
The world so loved his work.
Aw, that's nice. Well, that's
I'm
a nice
just
thing.
quoting a friend of mine from Amsterdam. That's it's all interesting how everybody is sort of kind of getting what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you hear me at some level, and really, it's like you have a responsibility to start this process. Now, you don't have to do it all at once. It's one step at a time, and your children are watching you. It's always that first step. I have something from Lao Tzu about the first step of the million steps ahead. It's Path 25. The one I sent you is art. That's magic. And it's a process. Simon says you can go halfway to the door. Now, what happens next is that with those instructions, you will never reach the door. It's about the journey. And it's the way you relate to what you're doing is what the different paths on the Tree of Life are about. Mm-hmm. And each one leads to a different city, like Cincinnati and Detroit. And when you're trying to go somewhere in your development of self, that's with a capital S, you have metaphor in everything, including the color that you're going to wear to represent the path you're trying to seek. Mm-hmm. It's all in your mind's eye.
Right. Well, and the color would equate to vibration and frequency also, right?
Well, yeah, physicists would rather talk about resonance and, rather than, it's like a cat going down the slide when they talk about vibration as opposed to frequency.
So they don't like vibration, but they'll...
Well, vibration is not as precise a term on what's really going on in that atom going from a...
Well, frequency creates vibration, though, right?
Well, yeah, there we are. Good vibrations. Ooh, ooh.
I mean, no, seriously, when you're using a frequency, it does create an oscillation at some point.
And it has a vibration to it. That's correct.
All right, so there you go.
It's one that's oriented in the physical form. You can feel it because there are vibrations in higher levels that nobody even gets. I can't hear certain frequencies.
Right.
There it is.
Once again, do you think those vibrations, or actually those frequencies, are associated with a specific dimension? Because we're multidimensional?
No, you changed it from vibration to frequency in your own sentence because it's a more precise word.
It is.
Yes. Yeah, there you go.
You caught me.
I did. I'm good. Dancing on. Oh, that's my most favorite music group, by the way. Dead Can Dance.
Oh, I love them. Yeah.
I know, aren't they? Yeah.
They're awesome. Was it Dance of the Seraphim or which one is that? There's one that's beautiful. Yeah, I really like it.
Yeah, that's the Dancing on Your Grave with the Seraphim.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. Yeah, no, that's a good one. You have good taste in music for sure.
How about another one like Spooky Tooth with Pierre Henry?
Yeah, there you go.
Doing Ceremony. Hosanna in the highest.
And there is something to be said about sacred ceremony. So it's not just about entrainment of your mind to navigate to other levels of consciousness, but there is...
Yeah, now what you're talking about there, the ceremonies, the rituals, are to celebrate the myth. That's what you're doing. And everybody has a different way of dancing. And so it's okay. But it is about the dance. Mm-hmm. That's the part that, you have to have a physical analog to everything.
Right. So what about entrapment? What about entrapment? Is there a way to be entrapped through ceremony and ritual?
If you step outside the circle,
come on.
Or fake, and they throw a little dirt over it like they did in Indiana Jones. I don't know. I have done 19th century, acolyte magic where I will have a square, actually a pyramid, where I will conjure up a demon. I was on this beach up in Washington with a bunch of students, and we were doing, someone just grabbed my sweatshirt. Yeah.
Is it a dog?
My Washington State University sweatshirt. Okay, so we were doing this ritual on the beach, and it's up near Bellingham, and we're inside the circle, and we've got this little pyramid, and we have a fire going in it, and supposedly that's where the demon is supposed to appear in the old Faustian forms of magic. Mm-hmm. And we're all screaming that, the words, and, come forth, I demand you to come forth, and all of a sudden, what happened was the wind going across the beach blew across the fire, and blew the smoke across the beach, and then it stopped, and the smoke went up and formed this big form. Freaked us out, man. I'll tell you. I mean, I was sitting there going, what? And it was like a literal manifestation. That's how it works. And what was it real? Well, no, smoke and the wind. But the combination of that moment created, there he is, Mephistopheles, just like in the movies. And it was creepy.
Right. It's like an intent, though, but that's like an elemental harnessing. So what about drawing down?
Exactly correct. That is an elemental. You are absolutely correct.
Thank you. A+.
In fact, that is what a demon is.
Okay. All right. So that demon is an elemental. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a lesser form of man. Like an angel is a higher form of man. A demon could be, in old books like Chinese, Buddhism, and so on, your shadow. Where it's a projection of the sun, God, whatever, onto you, projecting down onto a lesser form, lesser dimensions. It is you, but it's a lesser part of you.
Makes sense, like a lower aspect of self.
Well, it's a metaphor.
Okay.
That's why they call it the shadow in psychology. Okay?
Yeah, that's fascinating.
An angel then would be a higher form of your radiation. Oh, look, he's glowing. That's because they put gasoline on him. I'm sorry. It's just a metaphor in the way you see what's going on in relationship to other things. And when you do that, that's a power tool out of my power tools. Yeah, that's mythic living. To be able to do everything in metaphor. Like when I restored my 280Z, when I had a rust panel in the car, when I did that, that's when I did my knee. Then when I did the bumper over here on the thing, I did my hip. And so I relate to my car now as me being restored.
Well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, really. It's 280Z, so there it is.
Yeah. So let me ask you about the drawing down. You're familiar with the drawing down, obviously. So have you done that?
What's that?
A drawing down of an aspect?
Drawing down of an angel. Yeah.
Or a deity. Yeah. So you do that, or you have done that.
Well, no, I did that. That was where I started.
Okay.
There's a difference there.
Very good. Awesome.
But that drawing down is actually kind of like Rick Strassman in the Kundalini going up or down, Sri Aurobindo or Gopai Krishna. That chill, that's a light beam going up or down your spine. And it will hit at the back. If you set your body correct, you can actually stimulate your pineal gland because that chill turns out to be actually in the visible light region. It's not infrared and it's not ultraviolet. Visible light. And it's got like a little light beam going up and down. And that is why they talk about seeing the light and why dimethyltryptamine is now considered how the brain creates God. Now, the other side of that is that's how God talks to you. And that's why ayahuasca is the popular right now, like it was back in my day, it was LSD, trying to kickstart your brain into its own neurotransmitters. LSD, or the dimethyltryptamine that they're using in experiments, are toxins. And what happens is, when you take the LSD, the body freaks out, generates its own lysergic acid amides, and the LSD is broken down and into salts and into the urine within 20 minutes. It's gone. And the 20 hours of hallucinations and phenomena is actually from your own brain chemistry. And really, you release that at all the times. I can do it now almost at will. That's what you learn how to do, like the chill on your body. You can create that chill whenever you want to. You can make yourself feel that. That is, you actually releasing that at will. That's magic.
And is that part of the Kundalini you're saying when you're...
that chill going up your spine, that's circuit 6. You betcha.
Okay, yeah.
That's
Wow.
Kundalini. Yeah, and if you can control that, you will have close encounters.
Oh, yes, indeed. And what about the now just elaborating a little bit on the Kundalini for you. Have you noticed the pulse when you do a Kundalini meditation in the past? Have you noticed?
There are many different levels of what I have experienced in tantric yoga and sex magic.
Mm-hmm.
And sex magic itself is one of the higher forms, art forms of magic. That's why, because the Masonic secret, the thought that occurs at the moment of climax happens. Mm-hmm. That is the Masonic
Okay,
secret.
hold that thought for a second, because now that ties into Montauk, when they used to use, they wired those guys up to like all sorts of technology and then surge them out sexually to a point where they would actually manifest something and it would appear.
I don't know about that part.
Okay.
Dr. Carl Schleicher did the Montauk work.
Right.
In the East Coast.
No, I've talked to some fellows who were there, and they mentioned that to me. That's why it kind of ties into what you're saying.
Yeah, they didn't put enough saltpeter in their chow. That's what I'm thinking. I'm kidding.
You make me laugh. This is good because it's been a weird week. Thank you.
I try. Well, it isn't like when you actually. I was right there at the time. Spook Central. That's the title of a new book I'm writing. That's
Spook
another
Central?
One. Yeah.
I love that.
I wrote a book called Spook Central. It's not out yet.
Will you get it out, please? Get these books out.
Yeah, I need a patron. That book is the work I did at MRU. And I was, at the time, in the center of it all. And I didn't know it. It wasn't a big deal like it is now. It wasn't like that. It was like just doing my work, as a kid doing it. I wasn't some whiz. Well, I was a whiz kid. I didn't even know that either. I didn't know what I was. I was just out of graduate school and eager beaver, wanting to do research. And I was real good with the equipment. I was instrumentation specialist, and I was a genius with my hands. Anything I touched worked.
Excellent.
And so I did a lot of toys, mass spectrometers, electron microscopes. I used to play with all kinds of things. And that's what I miss now, is my access to toys.
Well, can't you get access?
Well, I'm down here and, pretty caveman down here.
You chose to live there.
Yeah, Rogue Community College. There have been some talk of bringing a lab in, so I might teach a forensic course for the nursing school. I have a large laboratory here already with my biofeedback, stuff I used when I was training SEALs.
Right, do you still use it?
I don't need it anymore. Hardly. It's like meditation. When you use brain drivers, you can get there real quick, but you need to do it for years and years and years before it becomes part of your essence.
Right, yeah.
Okay, well, I've been using biofeedback to control my heart rate for, 30 years, like meditation. Excellent. So, yeah, I can do polygraph, no problem.
Yeah, you can lie well, huh?
Well, no, I used to train that. One of the things for SEALs, it's in my Power Tool book, was interrogation.
Right.
How to get around it or how to do it, how to interrogate them and watch them with a paranoia meter or something, voice stress analyzer.
What about remote influencing?
What's that?
What about remote influencing, like dropping people like flies through?
You're staring at goats?
Yeah.
That's an Army thing. Really, the wrong goat died, first off. And anybody that would think a general could run through a wall has got a screw loose.
Well, what if they change their molecular structure? Then they can do it.
Well, good luck with that. This century, the Air Force, I'll send you a paper. Air Force has a brand new DOD project on teleportation. They're actually moving objects 14, 15 inches, and now several feet away.
Nice.
Actually, yeah. How does that work? It's, again, around this cavitation process where there's topological surface. What happens? Okay.
Hey, hold that thought. We're heading for a break. We'll be right back, everybody. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about teleportation.